Hello and welcome. I'm Joanna Pena-Bickling. I'm the head of research and design for Alexa devices at Amazon and the CEO of designbys.org, a civic media and public service design cooperative on a mission to create equitable representation in science, tech, engineering, arts, math, and design. It's a pleasure to explore and design a more inclusive future with you today. Where we stand today, the winds of change and transformation are at our backs yet again. You see, enormous change happens when three forces that shape how we live converge to create new infrastructure and spur new economic growth. The three forces of the Industrial Revolution are the force of communication, which today is being powered by the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence, the force of mobility, which is being powered by the electrification and automation of cars and drones, and the force of energy, being completely reshaped by renewable green energy. In our new connected era, we are redefining what it means to be human. As business leaders, we are asking ourselves what it means to be inventive media leaders. As we continue to chart the transformation of our industry by augmenting our intelligence, our abilities, our creativity with new conversational and brain interfaces, these are being powered by technologies like the Internet of Things, blockchain, and quantum computing. From 5G-powered autonomous transportation to solar-powered roads, buildings, and infrastructures, we are being impacted by the acceleration of time. Life as we know it is changing, and the planet that we live on is changing with it. Reflecting on the last 18 months, we know that the last 18 months has not been kind. It is a year that preyed on the weak. It is a year that claimed lives. It is a year that eroded the trust in our processes, our institutions, our businesses, and even our governments. It was a year that was divided by staggering loss of life, and it was filled with a world of moments that were often filled with courage, compassion, and heart. It was a year that begged us to take a more human approach to how we build resilience for the next 100 years. And it was a year that stands as a stark reminder that the world's problems and business problems are inherently linked. You see, juxtaposed against great loss, the last year proved that in the face of resistance, we are resilient. We are still capable of making what is seemingly impossible possible. And it was a year, and this year continues to be a year of innovations that remind us that nothing is out of reach when we reach for the stars. This is going to be a year accelerating how we define what it means to be human. And it's going to be a year that business, community, and world leaders are demanding accountability, scientific rigor, balanced with artful intention and invention. Today, we, the business and media leaders, are being called to ask a simple question: what if? The great Bucky Fuller, an inventor, a media mogul, and a designer and architect of the future, once asked, what if we could design a world that worked for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time without economic or ecological disadvantage to anyone? As I speak with media leaders across the world, I often hear the questions that kind of sound like this. What if we could make magic cars that could teleport us from one space to another time and experience history or the future? What if we could enchant our speakers to speak back to us? And what if we could build a streaming platform that helps people discover new superpowers and skills? What if we could change the very way advertising is experienced? And what if we could recognize new viewers and tailor advertising towards their needs and desires? What if we could design media platforms to ensure that 100% of humanity is vaccinated against COVID-19? Here we stand at an inflection point, on the edge of collapse or on the edge of glory. As a business and media leader, will you choose chaos or community? As a leader in the community, I dare to choose community and ask, What if we could design a future that we deserve today? When we think about the future, we have to remember that the future does not fit in the containers of the past. While we can't see the exact shape of those containers yet, it's becoming clearer and clearer every day that we will continue to come into focus in the coming months. And while programmatic out-of-home has been evolving for a number of years now, the last year we have seen increases in a number of areas. And on the media supply side, we have seen strides in building infrastructure and internal processes that enable us to put our inventory to be bought and sold by automated processes. But tomorrow will look like something very different if this is happening right now. You see, a part of the disruption that is linked to the fact that AI, artificial intelligence, is quickly becoming the new UI. From the evolution of touch interfaces that power everything from our phones to our television screens, to the power of voice, gesture, and now brain interfaces that are being developed to scale our expertise and shorten the time to task in every aspect of our lives. As the number of devices continues to proliferate, the support for digital media and internet access speeds continue to increase, so too will consumers' ability to access their chosen media and content virtually anytime, anywhere. And as a result, data from media consumption will be rapidly growing in volume. All of these interfaces will produce media. When we think about where we are today in 2021, we know that digital data may be the most valuable asset that the industry has. You see, the future is not some far off date. Even in the next year, it's here and it's right now, but it's simply unevenly distributed. You see, the emergence of new infrastructure like charging stations and electrified roads and mass transit. Have you asked yourself how your business will fare? Among industry executives that I speak with that are familiar with cognitive computing, also known as artificial intelligence, 86% of them seem to indicate that it is playing a disruptive role in the industry, and 92% of the leaders in those organizations believe it will be important to the future of their businesses. So this is why we must invest in these capabilities. The key areas that we see the potential for upside when it comes to the power of AI and digital out-of-home and even out-of-home is audience measurement, customer insight, dynamic content management, and audience engagement. But to ensure that out-of-home media sees exponential growth in the years to come, not just this year, but all the way through 2030, we must lobby and support equal and equitable distribution of 5G across rural and urban cities alike. This will ensure the rapid adoption of new connected devices and the success of distribution platforms that will give people access and businesses access to economic growth drivers. So as we think about where we are in the fourth industrial revolution and we focus in on the communications and the business model that is changing, we are seeing a rise in programmatic, but we're also seeing its evolution to algorithmic. And so what does that mean? Today, it means that we are data-driven, programmed targeting, you're seeing variable and dynamic pricing. We still think of our business in the terms of CPM, and we're seeing, dynamic creatives and programmed creatives. Everything tends to be programmed. And the importance of localized program is important. And we're also seeing the usage of things like service bots. But as we move into algorithmic, one of the things that we are creating and seeing over and over is new revenue sources from things that are being machine-driven, self-learning data models, predictive pricing, thinking about moving from CPM to CPX, right? The cost per experience. as opposed to dynamic creative, looking down to the individualized creative and moving from those program creative to self-optimizing creative, hyper-localized creative and impressions. And more importantly, as we move around from automation of customer service, we're seeing AIs take over in the form of service human GANs, generative adversarial networks. Out of home is an expansive category, which represents billions in spending across key markets across the globe. And one might say also billions from tech companies, but what I'll tell you is your new customer actually isn't just the tech company, and it isn't just the retailer who has a physical location. But one of the areas that we're seeing exponential growth is in the area of telehealth and how telehealth and the intersection of out of home are coming into play. One of the things that we're also seeing is that in campaigns, some of the most powerful advertisers in the world are demanding more intelligent and more trackable out-of-home formats. And that takes me to the thing that's on the table that we cannot leave there. With artificial intelligence, marketing professionals and media companies alike are moving from brand recognition to actually realizing new commercial revenue. You see, AI allows us to function quicker and more effectively, but it also enables us to produce a better return on our investment. Improving out-of-home infrastructure with digital out-of-home infrastructure, with AI, machine learning, and 5G networks means that our industry is in an excellent position to realize a minimum of $29 billion in new annual revenue growth year over year. But here's the rub. There are a number of disruptors that are emerging. Things like autonomous cars that are beginning to ease the restrictions on ads outside of cars. At the same side, are bringing in new advertising inside of cars. All newer cars have dash screens, and in-car ads are creeping their way into those screens and already exist. The opportunity here is currently being downplayed because of safety concerns. But as we are actually creating solutions to those safety concerns, and as adoption increases among aging seniors who want to stay on the road, we can expect fully digital commercials and games being displayed on dash screens. In fact, we can expect each seat in the car to have its own dedicated screen, and each passenger in the car to be delivered individualized and interactive advertising, perhaps even interfacing with their mobile devices. So that's the question of where do we sit in this new world where AI disruptions potentially are taking a more intimate view of how we will play inside of those vehicles. Some say to rise above the disruption, you must have platforms that enable enchanting, entertaining experiences. You see, brands like this have moved from simply telling customers what they need to hear to building experiences to enable them to do more for their customers. This moves us into four-dimensional advertising, like this piece that was done in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. One of the things that we are seeing is this move from four-dimensional advertising, which often is using augmented reality, augmented intelligence, the power of AI, but also getting into more algorithmic art and advertising. You see, generative art in advertising is the process of algorithmically generating new ideas, forms, shapes, colors, and patterns. First, you have to create the rules that provide the boundaries for the creative process, and then a computer, or less commonly, a human, follows those rules and produces new works. Generative art is performed by mathematical algorithms that are written by an artist or a creative director. And the role of the artist is to create an autonomous system that defines things according to the algorithm and how the art should be created. In contrast to traditional ways of advertising, who spend days and days or even months exploring just one idea, generative code artists using computers to generate thousands of ideas in milliseconds is happening today. and generative artists are leveraging new modern processing powers to invent new aesthetics, use incredibly new ways of looking at the way that buildings become the new canvas for their advertising, all instructing those programs to do something new and unique and individualized. You see, this method vastly reduces the exploratory phase in the art and design phase. And so it begs the question, when you've got advertising creative directors utilizing algorithmic design and algorithmic art to produce it, do we actually have the platforms to take in those unique characteristics in a piece of written code? I'm here to tell you that the future is now, and algorithmic advertising is here, and we will see that increase over the next 10 years. So with the emergence of algorithmic advertising, we've got to ask ourselves, what are the opportunities that exist to create more engaging and more personalized experiences for audiences and individual consumers, and wider and wider media and entertainment ecosystems? The second question we have to ask ourselves is, what do media and entertainment data aren't we leveraging? And what if we could convert that into knowledge that would allow us to meet key objectives and business requirements? And what are the costs to our organizations and the wider media and entertainment ecosystem associated with making non-evidence-based decisions? What if we don't make those conversions? What will we lose? What are we leaving on the table? And lastly, what is the benefit that we could gain by being able to detect the hidden patterns locked away in our physical infrastructures through data? What is the thing that we could accelerate new business models, product development, and advertising effectiveness in ways that really enrich the customer experience for both the brands that are advertising and, more importantly, for more direct-to-consumer brands that are actually enabling new business models today in our new environments? These are tough questions we must ask ourselves, but here's what I know for sure, is that as we continue to produce these things, artists and the creative community is creating at a pace that is unprecedented. We will see more change in the next 5 years than we saw in the last 25 years. And so when we take a look at this, we have to ask ourselves and remind ourselves that there is no problem of human destiny that's beyond us. Here we stand at an AI frontier, but there's still one critical step between idea and action, between the first spark and the first step. I'd tell you it's cognitive experience design. The cognitive experience design that transforms action and transforms thought into that action. It turns the art of the possible into the art of the doable. AI and the Internet of Things gives us the power to do anything that we can imagine, but we have to design it, and we have to design it to power our businesses with resilience and privacy. We have the potential to craft cognitive media experiences that make every moment magical, every moment stand out, moments that enchant, and moments that disrupt the status quo. And by doing that, by thinking big and thinking different, we will have stepped into what humans have always done when the world came about, where we have really just first stood erect. Think about it this way: from the first fire to the first wheel to the first spark of electricity, from the first steps on the moon to the first email, we are defined by first. And AI and algorithmic advertising belongs in that category as the relationship between humans and machines are being transformed. We, the media players, the out-of-home media companies, are truly the new 21st century explorers, turning what was once science fiction into a well-designed reality by breaking new ground. But if we are to embrace what we have created, we must first dispel the myths that prevent us from putting it to great use. You see, our fear that is entirely real of being replaced by machines that we have created misses the purpose of what we can accomplish with our ingenuity. Our post-COVID journey is guided by machines designed to scale and enhance our expertise, not supplant us. You see, machines can do this by taking on the repetitive, mundane, and complex tasks in a data-driven world, and those trying to fight it instead of embracing it will fail to use their imagination to imagine what is possible. In reality, I can speak as a business leader who uses AI to take on my mundane tasks. AI has freed us to think and to be bolder and to create even new products that are completely new media ecosystems. You see, it's released us from the drudgery of meaningless moments and entreats us to spending time making almost anything that we can imagine. The question is, will you dare to create anything that you can imagine that will produce new revenue and create new experiences for brands? I know that we can and that we will. You see, we can design teachable moments that are accessible to everyone in the world. The thing that I know for sure is that we can design a wise world that connects us safely and privately. We can design 5G-powered economic equality for rural and urban centers alike. We can design the advertising infrastructure that combats climate change and heals spaceship Earth. And in that way, we can design our future. You see, the flip side of any industrial revolution is opportunity. It's an opportunity to think. It's an opportunity to design, and it's an opportunity to change our world. So here's my challenge to you. With this time that we have here at this conference, let's think. Let's think big and let's think new. Let's act right now. Every systemic problem that is facing our industry today presents us with an opportunity to use cognitive experience design to serve 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time through spontaneous cooperation from an ecosystem of partners without economic and ecological offense or disadvantage to anyone. You see, I'm daring you to transform your thought into artful action and design your place in this new, connected global enlightenment. Thank you.